All right, so Delphinium, it's a Canvas plugin, and everyone's saying it's going to revolutionize online learning.
Yeah, well, a lot of the buzz is about how it's really getting at the core problems with keeping students engaged and actually succeeding.
Interesting.
The professor who created it, he started with a really simple question. Students are glued to their phones playing games all the time. What if we could get them that engaged with their homework?
That's a good question.
Yeah, and so that's what started this whole thing. Over a decade of research and development went into this.
So we're talking about applying psychology to education?
Exactly. It's about understanding what motivates students and then building an environment that encourages that, right? They're trying to create a more engaging learning ecosystem, you know?
They're thinking about the visual experience, the motivational aspect, the teacher's workflow, even the parent-teacher connection. They understand that all these pieces, they're all interconnected.
Definitely.
What are the big problems Delphinium's trying to fix here?
Well, online education has challenges, right? We're trying to force that energy of a real classroom into this digital space, and it's not really working. Students are not learning as much as they could,
And it doesn't really address the motivation issues.
right?
It's like, how do you make clicking through modules feel like a real learning experience?
Well, Delphinium's creators, they saw that as a huge problem.
So how is Delphinium specifically trying to help students?
They identify three main challenges in digital learning that contribute to those negative outcomes we were talking about. First, there's the lack of social presence.
Yeah, it's easy to feel isolated and disconnected in an online environment.
The second challenge is structure and accountability. Online, it's way easier to fall behind.
Yeah, you need like a whole other level of self-discipline to succeed online.
Exactly. And that leads to the third challenge. A lot of students just haven't developed self-regulated learning skills yet.
What kind of skills?
For example, time management, organization, knowing how to stay motivated when you're on your own.
Right, it's a lot to ask. So those are some pretty big hurdles. Is Delphinium trying to address all of these at the same time?
Yeah, by designing the learning environment to encourage certain actions and behaviors.
Okay,
Almost like how mobile games are designed, they're kind of tapping into those dopamine pathways in the brain, making learning feel more rewarding in the moment.
that's amazing.
By combining principles of social presence, behavioral economics, and self-regulated learning, Delphinium can create an environment that promotes both the skill and will to succeed.
Starting with social presence, right? We know online learning can feel isolating. How does Delphinium change that?
Think about what makes a good in-person class. The energy, the rapport with the teacher, feeding off classmates. Delphinium tries to bottle that up and bring it online, making students feel like they're part of a class, not just a username submitting work into the void.
Okay, but how? What's the magic formula?
It's a bunch of things working together, really. Students get to customize avatars, they can see how they stack up on leaderboards, even see how their progress compares to their peers, and it's all happening in real time.
I like it. It's about fostering that sense of community, right?
Definitely.
One of the big criticisms of online learning is the lack of teacher presence, that feeling of isolation. Does Delphinium address that at all?
For sure. Actually, one of the things teachers rave about most is Delphinium's communication features. It makes it so easy to send personalized messages, a quick check-in, some words of encouragement, or even really targeted updates for students who might be struggling. And the best part, they can schedule these messages in advance or even set them to go out based on certain triggers, like if a student submits an assignment or their grade dips below a certain point.
So it's like having a personal assistant for communication.
Definitely. Even in online spaces, teachers can be present, be responsive. That's what matters.
Right.
And then the behavioral economics part comes in with this idea of nudges.
Nudges?
Yeah, they're like subtle design elements that encourage students to do certain things without forcing them.
So like gently guiding them in the right direction?
Exactly. Like those progress trackers, the countdown timers, even those prize boxes. They're like little reminders and motivators, but it's all done in a way that's engaging and not controlling.
It sounds like the positive feedback encourages good habits.
Right. It's about finding that sweet spot where those external motivators actually enhance, not hinder, a student's own desire to learn. And that ties into the third piece of the puzzle, self-regulated learning. It's about how learning is a cycle. Students need to set goals, make a plan, track their progress, reflect on what they've learned, and then adjust based on feedback. Think of it as giving students the tools to manage their own learning journey.
Delphinium gives students a map and teaches them how to read it for themselves.
That's it.
How does that translate into how Delphinium is actually designed and used in classrooms?
Delphinium basically acts as this visual layer on top of Canvas. Instead of that boring wall of text and assignments, students see this super visually engaging dashboard.
That sounds way better.
They can see all their grades, their performance on every assignment, even compare themselves to the rest of the class. It's all right there, visual and easy to understand.
And think about those progress trackers. They show the students exactly where they are in the course, what they've done, and what they need to do.
It's a roadmap to keep them on track and motivated, and that can be really empowering. It's all laid out in a way that encourages them to take charge.
So instead of vague goals, they have concrete milestones they can see. It's like having a coach who's always there to help.
Exactly.
So engagement theory, the visual appeal, the gamification, the streamlined communication, all sounds great, but do they have the results to back it up? Does it really move the needle on student success?
That's where the data gets interesting. They compared courses with Delphinium to those without. The numbers are pretty convincing. Several studies have shown a significant drop in failure rates in courses using Delphinium. They did this case study with Davis Connect. They used Delphinium in 72 classes, over 6,000 students, and get this, failure rates dropped 31% compared to the year before.
31%. That's huge. Anything with that kind of impact is worth a closer look.
Exactly.
I mean, that suggests Delphinium is really having a positive impact.
Another study looked specifically at whether Delphinium improves student motivation. The vast majority of Delphinium students said they felt more motivated than in traditional courses.
Wow, that's promising.
Yeah, more engagement, more on-time work. Everyone felt more connected. And it's not just about the numbers, right? We also have those user testimonials to consider.
Oh, right. Right. Getting the personal perspective.
Exactly. So we have teachers calling Delphinium a game changer,
Wow.
talking about how it's improved both student success and engagement.
It's always nice to hear those firsthand accounts, right?
And some teachers talked about how it empowers students to take responsibility for their own learning, which leads to more motivation and ultimately better achievement.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it goes beyond academics too, right?
Absolutely. Some testimonials focused on the emotional benefits, like how Delphinium helps students feel more connected to the learning, their peers, and even their teachers.
That's really important, especially online.
Yeah, that sense of belonging is so crucial.
So what parts of Delphinium seem to make the biggest difference?
What really stood out was the ability for students to track their own progress and compare themselves to their peers. Students really like seeing their achievements visually represented, and that sense of competition seemed to motivate them.
It makes sense, right? Like seeing those bars fill up or your name climb up the leaderboard, it's got to be more motivating than just a letter grade on a screen. It sounds like Delphinium goes way beyond just making Canvas prettier. It's really about humanizing the whole learning experience.
That's exactly right. At its core, it's about fostering real connections and genuine love of learning in the digital space.
And isn't that exactly what we want for our students? To feel connected and inspired?
Absolutely. Whether they're online or in a physical classroom, it all comes down to creating an environment where students can truly thrive.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Delphinium, what are the key takeaways for our listeners?
I think the biggest takeaway is that Delphinium offers a really effective approach to tackling some of the big challenges in online learning, especially when it comes to engagement, motivation, and helping students develop those self-regulated learning skills.